Every single time that I want something to be different than how it is, I'm going to just lean into that resistance and I'm going to let them be exactly how it's going to be. Within moments of doing this practice, and then within days, it continued to deepen. I was connecting with my kids in ways I've never had before. I was connected with my parents and my brothers and my wife in ways that I never had before.
Man of Mastery, episode 62 with Ryan Sawyer. Ryan is a human performance coach, speaker, and author. Today we talk about Choice Point, his book about a severe low in his life, hiding from anxiety and depression, and his journey to the man, husband, and father he is today. We talk about this underlying theme of limiting beliefs and how they will manifest in your life if not addressed or changed. And as you heard previewed briefly in the highlight clip, Ryan's got an incredible practice of letting go of preferences and how that changed his perspective and how he showed up. So before we jump in, I want to say a quick thank you. Thank you for being here. Thank you for your time. I know it's scarce, and I appreciate you. So if you're getting value out of this podcast, out of the material, and out of the guests, I would ask, please, you could give back by letting a friend know, have someone else tune in, see if it works for them as well. Maybe post something out on social media, Instagram or Facebook about the podcast, or repost something and steer some of your folks here. And the other thing, as always, is Apple iTunes and Apple Podcast ratings and reviews. I'll read one off recently and say thank you to this user who wrote, "Great podcast, 5 stars, practical and useful steps to achieving more in life. Excited to hear more." Again, thank you. That kind of feedback or any feedback is the best gift in the world on what you're hearing and what we can bring more of. So I think you'll find exceptional value today also with Ryan Sawyer. If you want to hear more about the IHP consulting and Be Aligned coaching practices he'll describe, make sure you hit the show notes for this episode at manofmastery.com/062, where you can find all the links to Ryan Sawyer and his wife Heidi under IHP coaching. With that, let's get into it with Ryan Sawyer. All right, hey, today I've got Ryan Sawyer on with us. Ryan is a former college football coach turned personal development coach, speaker, and author. His book is Choice Point: Break the Cycle of Self-Sabotage, Accelerate Your Growth, and Realize Your True Potential. Ryan, welcome.
Thank you so much for having me, Michael. Appreciate it.
My pleasure. Yeah, great to see you. Hey, let's jump right in the deep end here. I know everybody's life story is a journey and it's a jagged path. Yours, more than anybody, has highs, has lows. Let's start right at one of the lows. I think is really the catalyst for what you're doing in your new book. Your wife, Heidi, found you, I think, curled up on the floor one day in the depths of an anxiety attack.
Yeah, let's just rip off the Band-Aid. I like it. So
let's do it.
Yeah, so this is a buildup to where it finally is at a point where I can't hide anymore. Yeah, I had hid my depression, my anxiety, my whole entire life. I can think back all the way until my early teens of having these deep, dark thoughts and contemplating suicide at 17, 18 years old, and again, attempting to drink enough at 22 and all the way through, right? And so I'm doing the dishes, and she has no idea that I have anything going on. We're two kids living life and coaching college ball, and I'm so busy and distracted with doing that it's pretty easy to hide because 80, 100-hour weeks and the whole 9 yards. So I'm doing the dishes, and I had been dealing with more and more anxiety over the last few months leading up to this moment. And I mean, my vision goes and tightness in my throat and my chest. And I legitimately thought I was dying. I thought, oh, this is a heart attack. This is it. Like this, I'm going down. And I had experienced a few of these types of moments, like on the sidelines, coaching ball games where it's an intense situation and I got too wound up and I lost my vision, but I kind of was able to regain composure. But this one, I was like home, the kids are right there in the living room. I'm in the kitchen. It's kind of an open concept. And so I crawl across the floor over to the next room, trying to hide because I don't want them to see it. I don't want her to see it. I don't want to tell her about it. So I'm thinking, hopefully this will pass. And I'm honestly at this point in time, I'm legitimately contemplating how to get out of this life. Like I'm thinking to myself, if I wake up tomorrow feeling like this, how do I end it? I'm just gonna, oncoming traffic. Like I had all these thoughts in my head of how I'm gonna do this, And so I'm curled up in a ball, waiting for it to pass, and it won't pass. A few minutes go by. She finally walks around the corner, sees me, and she's like, "What's going on?" And I'm like, and so I try to kind of just play it off, and she sits down, and she's not gonna like let me just sit there and curl up in a ball. Like she needs to know why. And so I'm like, okay, well, we need to talk. And so, hours later of basically coming clean, the theme was, I'm not the man you think you married. Like I'm suffering. I can't stand to be in my own skin. This has been going on my whole life, and it's intensifying recently. And I don't know what to do. And so that's what sparked the conversation between the two of us of that maybe I need to leave coaching, but she never pushed me one way or the other. And the biggest friction between the two of us, and I think this is fairly common, is she didn't know how to handle it. She didn't know how to be there for me or support me, because anytime that she thought that I was down or whatever, she was just worried. And so she'd be like, oh, what's wrong? And, which is, to someone who's dealing with depression to that level, someone saying what's wrong is nails on a chalkboard, right? It's like the last thing you ask somebody that can't stand to be in their own skin, And so it just compounded for her and I, and it was the beginning of a very, very bumpy road for a few years to come.
Yeah, let me just interject a quick question, Ryan. So, I said your journey maybe more than anybody, but maybe that's misspoken, right? Because I think to some degree, everybody has an element of this, what's going on inside them, or maybe said differently, from the outside, you're on top of the world, right? You helped coach a team to a national championship, success in what your primary professional endeavor was, incredible wife, and you guys have a family now, and maybe to the outside world looking in, everything's great. Ryan looks like a success. He looks like a role model. Maybe to your wife at this point, you've been able to hide a number of things. So, how do you think about that as you have started to have the courage to tell this story? Do people come out and say, yeah, I've hidden this, or I've been hiding from myself or from someone else?
Yeah, I think without a doubt, I even write that into my book, like from the outside looking in, we have this beautiful new built home, and, and I'm living my dream life. And this is when I was early teens, I remember telling my dad, like, Dad, I want to be a college football coach, and I'm going to win a national championship. Like, I didn't care whether I won it as a player or as a coach. And when I got through my playing career, it was like, no, I want to coach, and I'm going to win one as a coach. And so when those all things came to happen, it was 3 months later, her and I are getting married. The national championship trophy's at the wedding. We're taking pictures. It's like, what could possibly be wrong with this scenario? And so I think that this idea of hiding our depression is an anxiety, because it's going to make us seem weak, is completely happening all the time. How many times you hear about somebody who went down that path and finally made the decision to end it, and their family didn't even know what was going on. It's a very common thing. And you know what? Here's the thing that I think is important to talk about is the fact that I had a pretty good upbringing. My parents were together, right? A healthy family. We grew up on this little 2.5 acre farm, right? Again, everything seemed to be perfect, right? So I had guilt for feeling guilty. I had guilt for feeling depressed, which just compounded over time, right? Because I didn't have a reason. I felt envious of somebody who had a reason for being depressed. Like, I wish I had your reason, so then I can at least justify this bullshit.
Yeah, right? No excuses.
No excuses. And so, so that actually made it worse. I made it worse. And then the 2 times that I actually did reach out for help, I was 22 years old, and I'm sitting in the truck with my father. And at the time, I'm a young coach and coaching at Central Washington. I'm chewing a can of Copenhagen Day. I'm drinking. It's the typical college football coach of what you would potentially think of, like when it comes to stereotypical of just loud and going to the bars on Thursday nights, the whole 9 yards. And I told him, I said, hey, Dad, I really am struggling. There's something going on, and I don't like who I am. I don't like who I'm being. I don't like how I treat people. I really have a hard time even being in my own skin, and he didn't know how to handle that. He didn't know what to say. He in his own right was probably struggling with some stuff. And so, I didn't get any support there. And really, other than, well, maybe you should just take it easy on yourself or something like that, right? And then again, when I was like 28 years old, I had this moment where I was kind of at that breaking point of going like, I need help. And I spoke to who I would consider one of my very best friends. And I told him, like, man, I have these really deep, dark thoughts. And occasionally it's like almost, I'm contemplating this, suicide. And what he said to me was, whew, like he just, like, sheesh, Ryan, and that was it. Like, that was the end of the conversation. And so, because I felt so ashamed that he wasn't like, well, yeah, tell me more. What do you think is going on? Like, there was no banter back and forth. And so from that point forward, it was like, hide it. There's no other option. There's no other option.
I think most people probably don't know what to say.
Right. And that's the truth. My wife didn't know what to say. Yeah.
So where did that take you guys as a couple? Was that literally the bottom?
No.
Or no?
No. It got harder. So the thing that I now recognize, Michael, is that we tend to live out what our unconscious beliefs are about ourselves. Okay. And those things are going to manifest. I had this unconscious belief that I did not deserve to be happy, that sooner or later I was going to screw it up, and sooner or later the depression would win. So this was my belief. And so as we went through the transition of leaving coaching, I went through a massive physical transformation. I got into Spartan racing. I became a Spartan SGX coach. I lost 70 pounds. I mean, I'm racing. I start a whole business model, and I end up partnering with another Spartan coach who happened to be a female. And she also had some stuff that she was dealing with. And so I found my confidant in the sense that, like, she understood me, and I could talk about what I was battling with, and she could make me feel safe. And my wife was just resistant. A wall was up, and she didn't want to talk about it, didn't know how to handle it. And so I found myself in an emotional affair. I found myself in this place where I was putting everything I ever wanted, and everything I ever wanted was right there at home, at risk, and she kind of felt that it was something that was going on. And so she confronted me, and that's when I just completely dropped Spartan racing and started my painting company. And we were basically in the kitchen saying, okay, obviously this isn't working. We're having this conversation as basically the finality of our marriage. Like, I'm going to move out tomorrow. And, it's just complete despair, because I couldn't believe that I got myself to this place. And I was kind of starting to see, like, this is me creating this. Like, if I would have made different decisions all along the way and taken more responsibility, then we wouldn't be here. Right. And so in this place of this complete despair, I got this, just what I call a download that we both need to give each other space. We both need to do the work individually, and not just do the work, meaning go do more burpees, because that obviously wasn't the answer. I mean, 500 burpees on a Saturday afternoon wasn't doing it, but deep emotional work, really looking at ourselves and recognizing what our limiting beliefs are about ourselves and how we're manifesting that. And so we agreed to spend the next 6 months as roommates, basically living in our house, raising the kids, and doing work and looking inward. And you become the best version of yourself. I'm going to become the best version of myself. And that just put us on a trajectory where we just naturally grew back together. 3 months later or so, we're laughing in the kitchen, making dinner. I'm like, hey, did you notice that? We just enjoyed each other right there. Did you see that? And it was like, hey, and so the walls started to kind of come down one by one, and we started to communicate, and we found tools. We found ways that we could uncover these sabotaging beliefs and heal and move past them, to experience life completely different than what we knew was possible.
Yeah. I mean, it is truly amazing how those limiting beliefs play out. Yeah. Whether it's something more general, like you don't believe that you're entitled to happiness, or you find a way to self-destruct financially or emotionally or relationally.
Yeah, you hear about people who win the lotto, and they mind frame wise, their belief is that they don't deserve that, and they squander it all.
It's gone.
It's gone.
It's gone.
Because that's their underlying belief.
Same
right?
thing with our health.
Health.
Same thing with our relationships.
You know, I had one, I'll tell you, this is why it's such a big deal for me personally, and so healing and gratifying to be putting a book out. It's because I had a belief from the time I was a very young kid that I was stupid. I had this underlying, and so I went through school and life and everything, avoiding anything that was even associated with learning. Like, I'll headbutt you before I read a book. Like, it's just no way I'm ever going to until we're going through this. And I opened up to the possibility that I need to learn something different, look at life differently. And so the first book I read was Spartan Up. And I started to read, and I started to like, okay, this is it. And now I've read hundreds of books. And so this concept that I could write my own book is a stretch, is a complete stretch, right? And even the process of doing it was a stretch. But it's out there, and it's allowing for me to show up completely differently, right? Because I've overcome that limiting belief. And it's not just taking the authentic action that overcomes it, but it's actually going back to that child. And, Mark Divine talks about this in his latest book. He talks about this concept of our boo or our shadow, right? And it's somehow constructed mostly from our early childhood development. And so I go back to that kid that's sitting there at 10 years old, who's reading at the first grade level, and say, you know what, you're smart, you're safe, and now if you take this belief on that you're smart, that you're brilliant, that you have a gift to offer the world, how would you potentially have lived the rest of your life from that place forward? And then if you lived your life that way today, how would you then walk, and what would you do? Well, that person would write a book. Okay, then go write this on a page. Right?
That's amazing.
That's truly the healing type of work that we found. What's called shadow work, or the Q process, that we found that completely transformed our marriage. Because what we recognized is that every conflict that we were having started internally. Every conflict was a mirror. Everything was bouncing back to ourselves. And so we had to do the work.
Got to do the work. Well, congratulations. That being said, so the day we air this, your book will drop. So amazing work on that. Maybe you owe Joe DeSena a thank you for writing Spartan Up and getting you on that.
Right.
So it's interesting you mentioned kind of going back to like a 10-year-old self, because I think some people have trouble maybe doing the exercise of looking ahead to the end of their life and figuring out what they wanted to leave behind as a legacy or under their name. But for those who do have trouble with that, or additionally, it's an interesting exercise to look back on your actual past and impart in your mind some wisdom on a younger version of yourself. So let me ask, if you go back to the 10-year-old Ryan or the 17-year-old Ryan, do you think there's an element of, again, our internal beliefs sort of steering us to an eventuality if we allow it, or we don't change those beliefs? Did something about that steer you into the intensity of football as a player and then as a coach, 100%. A career that allows you to hide in 100-hour weeks where you're barely home, or maybe puts you around behaviors that may not be as healthy as you'd like?
Well, let's just look at it. I had, without a doubt, a role and a position that was based in intensity, right? I could do that. Like, from a very young age, when that belief was created, I then created this mask, this person, this part of myself, this version of myself that would embrace pain, right? That would welcome suffering from either workouts so there's no question on why I like the Spartan thing. Like, yeah, let's go do 300 burpees. Like, I love it, so all the way down to, okay, I put this helmet on and I'm somebody different, and I become this animal, right? I become somebody who doesn't even experience anything other than, absolutely physically putting himself out there, right? And so when I'm coaching, the same thing. It was the same piece. I was getting paid to be me, and the version of me that was operating at that point was this super loud, intense, just in your face. It looks like, from the outside looking in, like, oh my goodness, right? But in all reality, on the inside, he's a 8-year-old boy who's scared as shit.
I
Yeah,
love it.
yeah. And so I think you hit a point there. I think it's a really good insight, Michael, that no question, I then chose a path that allowed for me to show up as that person that made me feel safe from my limiting beliefs.
Nice. Let's talk about coaching a bit, because in the course of your journey, you've studied a bunch and you've got a lot under your arsenal that you've put to work for yourself and now others in your IHP consulting practice, coaching practice with your wife. Just a question I ask myself, and I think a lot of people probably have this. You come from a sports background. We find it obvious to understand why athletes need coaches. But so many of us leave the concept of a coach behind on the sports field when we're done after high school or college. Why don't people use coaches more as human performance tools? Or I guess said differently, why do we need coaches? Who needs them?
Yeah, and I think the first answer is that we don't use them because it's fairly this new concept, and society-wise, we aren't strong if we have to ask for help. First of all, at least as men, right? And in my opinion, everybody needs a coach. I would tell you right now, if we ever bump into each other down the road, and you ask me who my coach is, and I don't have an answer for you, I want you to slap me upside the back of my head and say,
"You got it. You got
it."
Yeah,
because we cannot see what we cannot see, and it's as simple as that. I mean, our subconscious mind is cunning of how it's going to convince you that whatever story you're telling yourself is true and is valid, and there is no other way, right? And so we need coaches to be able to help, and then if somebody's been through something or has achieved something that you are going through or want to achieve, why not learn from what they've learned, right?
absolutely.
Like my current coach is someone who's written 8 books. He's very biblically driven, and he is absolutely serving the world in the largest capacity out of anybody who I know. Greg Amundsen, you know who Greg is, right?
Sure.
And so he's who I have hired for this year, and he's totally moved the needle. I mean, because he's helped me guide and navigate where I want to go, because he's been there and he's doing it, right?
Yeah, Greg's amazing.
He's incredible, and so to understand, like, hey, listen, whether it's overcoming depression or whether it's becoming a high performer or whether it's in business and personal life or professional life, whatever it is, like someone's been there, so let's learn from that person. Like,
that's a great way to put it. I never thought about it quite this way before, but when you say that, I think, why ever read if you believe you don't need a coach, why would you ever read a book?
Don't read a book. Yeah.
Why would you ever watch a documentary if you could just go figure it out yourself?
Right.
Look, I don't have time. Why not learn from somebody who's already figured it out, avoid those mistakes, and accelerate the process?
Accelerate the growth, right? Exactly. And here's the piece. I have become someone who just absolutely love learning. I love learning, right? And so I'm going to be the one who goes out and gets 5 certifications, and I'm probably not done, because I just love to know what's going on. And I'm going to read book after book after book after book, and I'm going to connect all the dots. Well, for somebody else who maybe doesn't want to do that, like maybe now they can just say, okay, so you went through the Unbeatable Mind program, you did this, you did oxygen. What is the commonality with all these things? Like, what worked for you, right? And I can pull out of that the stuff that is the real meat and potatoes that really made a shift, and that might not resonate with somebody, but it resonates with my audience, right? The people who need to hear it from my perspective, because every single person, if you're sharing your story, Michael, there's somebody out there, you might be sharing the exact same tool that I'm sharing, but you're sharing it from your perspective, and it resonates with somebody. It resonates with somebody. And I mean, I have this vision in my mind that the whole world, everybody has a coach. Like, we can just pass each other's money around, right? Just like, who's your coach?
Right. Yeah. No, I mean, I look at your resume of certifications around Oxygen Advantage. You've got mindfulness and meditation training, yoga coaching, Unbeatable Mind coaching, Spartan SGX, and the list goes on. Literally tens and tens and tens of thousands of dollars of investment you have made to understand and maybe boil down or synthesize this information in Ryan's style to bring to the people that you resonate with.
Yeah, exactly. And none of that was originally to become a coach. Like originally it was because I wanted to fully understand why. Like, for example, the Q process. When we went through it, my wife and I had this massive shift in 21 days over the course of a Christmas vacation years ago. And I thought to myself, okay, I want to know what's happening behind the veil on all this, right? And so let's dive in, become Q facilitators. So it deepens our practice, right? No different with Unbeatable Mind. Like I got Kokoro Yoga I got on the mat with Mark Divine for 2 weeks, doing yoga, breath, meditation, talking about the Yoga Sutras for 2 weeks on the mat with Mark Divine, like the most impactful 2 weeks of my life. I really didn't want to be a yoga teacher. I do still now teach yoga, but it was because someone was like, will you please come teach this yoga at my studio? And I was like, I guess I will. But now I love it. But it was not my purpose at all. Like, it was because I wanted to deepen my own practice of yoga, of breath, of meditation, of visualization. I wanted to learn face to face with Mark, because he was one of those mentors that I just absolutely gravitated towards. So, that's kind of my purpose behind all of those certifications. It's not like, hey, look at me. It's because I just love to learn.
Yes, it's not about the paper on the wall. I'm fascinated. I'll take a quick left turn here and tell you my Greg Amundsen story. I'm fascinated by what we pick up on, what we observe, what we choose to observe, or what sticks with us, and how we find meaning in those things. And it could be something you pick away from what you're studying, right? So you could go read a book 3 times and take away 3 different things, right?
Sure. Yeah.
Particularly when it comes to somebody maybe as insightful as a Greg or a Mark or someone like that. So I had Greg on my show. Gosh, I'm losing time in the COVID world now. So I think it was last year, probably August, September of 2019. And I went and I ran my first Spartan Ultra Beast, the 31 mile at Lake Tahoe. And so we got snow and thunder and lightning and hail and rain and the whole experience. And I had spoken to Greg for this interview, I think the week or 2 leading up to that. And I told him I was going to do it. And you know how Greg is, he just kind of got behind me. And he said, I think his exact words were, "You got this, brother. God is with you."
Right.
So it's classic Amundsen, he pumps you up and, he'll bring his spirituality into it. And I was making my way up the mountain. It's 2 laps of those 2 mountains there. It might've been the second time up the mountain, and the storm had rolled in. At one point the race actually got put on hold because it was like 3 inches of snow that came down during a lightning storm. I don't know how that works. I've never seen snow and lightning at the same time.
Only Spartan, man. Only Spartan.
Only Joe DeSena can order it up that way. And I'm making my way up the mountain, and it's freezing, and it's just, you can't see an ounce of sunlight or blue sky. It's just covered up there on the mountain. And I came around a bend where I had a perfect view of the whole valley down Squaw Valley there. And right then, that encouragement from Greg came to my mind. And right then, clouds opened, and I just saw sun shining down on me right there, warm me up, and on the valley as I continued on. So, you kind of find your inspiration where you need to find it.
That's right. No, that's awesome. I love that story.
He's a cool guy. So, something I want to ask you about guilt and tie it back to what you just said about the importance of practice and working on ourselves. So with what you were hiding and not feeling right in your skin, and as I think you described, sort of compounding through a process of guilt amongst others in there, if the way out of that started with working on yourself, particularly as ultimately you're trying to serve your kids and serve your marriage and preserve that, how did that feel? I mean, was there more guilt that came from having to work on yourself?
No,
did you understand at the time that working on yourself benefited the rest?
It took me a moment, but there was definitely this awareness that I could not show up for them as this version of myself. Like, I couldn't get on the floor and play with my kids, Michael. And so if I can't even get down, and then I recognized it in my son, and I don't know if this is true or not. I don't know, but this was my perspective at the time. When he was 2 years old, he would have this separation anxiety. Every time I left the room, he'd freak out. And he just would have these moments where he's playing, he's a 2-year-old, he's playing with blocks or whatever, and depression would look like. That's what it looked like. I'm not saying it was, but it looked like this vibrational shift, this drop in his energy, his head would drop. And I thought to myself, wow, like this is my impact on him. I do not want to impact my children this way. And so initially it was, yeah, I'm doing it for him, but I recognize that like I have to be selfish. And I even told Heidi that. And that's what it was, a really hard time. I just give her so much credit. Such a strong woman, because I had to be selfish. And I told her, like, I don't know how long it's going to take, or I don't know where I have to go, but like I have to do whatever it takes. And that meant, you know, sometimes things were weird. I'm not going to be, I have a space down here in my basement that I can go to close my door, to do my practice, to do my yoga, do my breath work and chanting, or whatever it took to shift my energy. I was going to do anything. And there's a lot of times where it was, that came first and foremost, and so one of the disciplines that I created, I quickly recognized that I needed time to be able to get myself into that space, because I started to learn the science behind how our cells reproduce and neurological pathways and all these things that, like, okay, if I let myself stay in this guilt, I am creating more of that program to where I'm going to have to feel more of this in the future. So like I'm stopping this program in its tracks and I'm shifting this shit, right? And not to mention, I'm going to do the work to emotionally heal. So it's not about just suppression, but it is a balance between the two of letting go and healing and surrendering, and then just deciding like I'm going to shift it, right? Just taking on more of that unbeatable mind, using the worm type of concept. And so, I recognized I needed more than 20 minutes. I needed more than that. Like there was times where it was a 2 to 3 to even 4 hour morning routine before I was prepared to go face the day. But I was not going to get up off of my seat or the meditation bench or otherwise until I created the version of myself that could walk through the day, that I would create my future of me. And I'd hold on to that person being grounded and peaceful and patient and spiritual and whatever, that I would hold on to that vision until I could feel it. And I would not get up until I felt it. And so, there was days where months would go by and I would do 2-hour meditations. I would do, Dr. Joe Dispenza's work. I don't know if you're familiar with his guided meditation, but it's very, very intense meditation work. And so there was definitely a period of time where it was insanely selfish. But when I made a shift and I crossed this threshold from running away from the darkness, right, of really truly trying to avoid pain, to experiencing more hope and more light, and we would like chasing the light. There was a threshold that happened where I recognized, like, hey, I'm working out today, and I'm working out because I want to, and it feels good, and this is fun, and whatever. It wasn't like I'm gonna beat myself into the ground. I'm gonna beat this out of me. So I used to do these crazy, like what I would call exorcisms. I would legitimately work out so hard until I had a release. And when I had that release, I'd have 2 or 3 days of a quieter mind. Right. But it's not a pace I could keep up, And so anyway, when I crossed that threshold, then I was able to start to look around and to serve my family and my relationship with my kids, and eventually now my community and beyond, right? But it was first and foremost, it was selfish, but it was selfish to be selfless, right? It was in that order, and I'm not sure if I thought of it that way at the time. I hope I did, but there was no other option. There's no other option. I had to be selfish.
Yeah, that makes sense. That's a pretty cool way to describe shifting from maybe sort of a negative energy to a positive energy, even if some of the practices might have looked similar. Yeah. So we're hitting implicitly on a few points here in what you call in your book, 8 principles of transformation. Some of that being awareness of an issue to start with, and focusing on yourself. So let me ask, these 2 questions might actually be sort of one and the same. One of your principles is about life as a practice. And one of the things I've seen you say is there's a transformation from doing the practice to being the practice. And we're not so good at being here in the Western world, but I wanted to ask about what that means. And I also want to ask about this journey, about how long it takes, because we are in this instant media instant satisfaction, gratification, social media kind of world. And, you're a guy who lost 70 pounds. Losing 70 pounds doesn't happen overnight. Fixing yourself and then your family as an extension of it doesn't happen overnight. So how long, what's that shift in practice, and how long does something like this take to set reasonable expectations for other people who want to make a change?
So let me hold on to that second question
Okay.
for me, so I don't have to remember to answer it, because I want to answer that because I think it's an important piece. But I'm going to try to do the best I can to illuminate what I mean by life as a practice and becoming the practice. Again, I think when I first sat down to say, I'm going to meditate, right? I see the benefits. I see the science behind it. It's clear that if you can pull this off and you can create this to be a discipline, there's going to be results, right? But I set out, and I had good mentorship, and this is important, but I had good mentorship to say, don't expect anything to be different. Practice for 6 months with no expectations. Just practice. And so I didn't know what practice meant. I thought practice meant actually like sitting there and breathing and watching my thoughts and coming back to my breath and developing a practice, right? And what I realized, and this is in the book, is there was a time where we love to catch sunrises in my family. We just love the beginning of the day. We're early morning people. And so I am on this rock at Priest Lake with my son. He's there doing box breathing with me, and I'm in my qigong stance, and I'm doing my thing, and I'm visualizing my future self and kind of drawing it back into the present moment. I'm doing all this stuff, right? And I had this just flashback of my whole spiritual journey up to that point. And I realized that at that point in time, there was this crossroad that happened where I was no longer practicing to create something new. I was practicing because I was being somebody different. Like I was being the person who loves to feel connected, that is grounded. I was being this spiritual man. I was being this man of always seeking to be have clarity and to be peaceful and to be patient. And I was in this moment sitting here on this rock at 5:30 in the morning with my, at the time he was 6, but with my son, and it was like, this is it. This is the practice. And then beyond that, life as a practice is every time that we find ourselves pulling ourselves out of the present moment because of a reaction of some kind, because of an irritability of some kind, because of a circumstance that makes us feel like we want it to be different than it is. Therein lies the practice. In that moment, what I call the choice point, we have a choice to run an old program, and that's a reaction. We are reacting. We're just acting in the way that worked for us before, that made us feel safe and approved of, right? Or we have a choice to rewrite the program. We have a choice in that moment to let go of whatever story that we're telling ourselves of why we don't like how the world is showing up, or whatever that may be. And we are able to practice being a new version of ourselves in that moment, right? We're able to say, okay, if your future self, how would that person react? If you've done all this work on yourself, that person would listen to your wife fully and actively listen, and then take a moment before you respond, then go ahead and do that right now, right? And practice that. So not only is life of practice where the meditation itself becomes who I'm being, and I carry that throughout the day. Like I there was this time in my meditative practice where I didn't want to come out of it because I was in this place of like rainbows and unicorns, and everything was perfect when I was seated. And the moment I got up, I started walking up the stairs, something would trigger. I'm like, I just want to go back to the bench. Like I just want to stay there. Right. And it was my mentor that said, you don't practice to experience, that state. You go experience that state to bring it with you through the rest of the day. So you have that as your grounding experience. From there, that's always your navigator, right? That's your compass. That's where you want to originate from. And so life as a practice is just that, is our ability to walk through the day and to recognize our reactionary self and to be aware of it and to let it go and to replace it and to allow yourself to show up authentically the way that you desire to. Right? There's a sense of surrendering, of letting go. There's a sense of allowing, and when you fully integrate yourself as your as your future self, then there's a merge that happens and everybody benefits. You get to experience life differently. Your family experiences life differently. And that's when we're able to make an impact, so.
So to be a little cliche, is that a process that happens little by little by little and then suddenly?
I think you realize. I think, yeah, totally. I mean, I'm gonna give you. Do we have time? I don't know how long you
Yeah,
usually go,
I've
but
got whatever time you need.
so there's a story that I love to tell, and it's in the book, but I'll tell it here. We went to Hawaii a couple years ago with all of our families. Okay, it was my brothers, his family, my parents. There's like 13 of us in this one house, and I had this concept in my mind that I was gonna go sit by the pool, and I was gonna read a book, and it was gonna be this super relaxing week, and we were gonna be on the beach. And instantly, it was like 6 o'clock in the morning. I got up at 4 so I could do my yoga and my breath and my meditation, and I'm in a great space, man. I'm sitting by the pool, this beautiful view of the ocean, and I'm reading my book, and at 6 in the morning, here comes 5 kids jumping into the pool. And I thought to myself, like, oh, what the hell are they doing up so early? And why are they getting in the pool at 6 o'clock in the morning, for God's sake, right? And so I just noticed this irritation, and I thought to myself, this is how the whole week's going to go if you let it. You're going to be irritated the whole week. You're going to always want somebody to be different than what they're being, right? So let's create a practice. Let's create a practice of letting go of your preferences. In each moment, you could probably find something you would prefer to be different. How someone's acting, how your finances are, or your business, or whatever else. You can always find something wrong with just about anything, right? And these are these preferences that build up over time. And so I was like, all right, I'm going to let go. Every single time that someone asks me to do something that I don't want to do, I'm just going to say yes. Every single time that I want something to be different than how it is, I'm going to just lean into that resistance, and I'm going to let them be exactly how it's going to be. Within moments of doing this practice, and then within days, it continued to deepen. I was connecting with my kids in ways I've never had before. I was connecting with my parents and my brothers and my wife in ways that I never had before, because in each moment, I was letting go. I was letting go of what I thought I wanted to be fully present with them. And at the end of the week, we're sitting on the beach having dinner at this restaurant. It's just the 4 of us for this dinner. Everybody else was doing their own thing. And I'm sitting there and I'm just super peaceful. My wife looks over and goes, Ryan, you look like someone who has zero preferences. You look so peaceful. And I just started laughing because I was like, well, I've been doing this whole week. I've just been like, and so I continue this discipline. I do it a couple times a month where I find myself starting to get wanting everything to be different. I wake up a little irritable and I'm like, all right, let's do it. Like most of the time I do it on Sundays. And so the other day I was doing it, and my son's like, Dad, you doing that whole letting go of your preferences thing again? Because he knows about it now. And I teach him to let go of his preferences, to just be fully with the present moment, with however it's unfolding, like with no judgment, right? And so about 4 o'clock in the afternoon, he's like, is this one of those days where I can ask you to do anything? You're going to say yes. Because, he's like, Dad, can we play chess? Sure. Can we go on a bike ride? Yeah. It's like whatever it was yes. So, I mean, I'm going to make sure everybody stays safe. But that whole piece is, to answer your last question with that, is that it's so important to take things on. And this is one of the principles, incrementally. Take things on one at a time. And it comes back to science again, this idea of transformation. I think it's so oversaturated in the personal development world of 30 days to this and 90 days to that, and it's marketing. Take your 10-year goals and turn them into 6 months, right? And that's all cute and fine and dandy. But when you really come back to lasting change and to people who are in the trenches and have families, if you really look at the people who are saying that, like their kids, they either don't have kids or their kids are gone. And now they're telling you, you need to do these things in this period of time, 40 days of transformation. But there's nothing that's going to fully transform in 30, 40 days. It's just not going to happen. It's incremental. It's over time. You're finding the wins. You're celebrating the small victories. You're setting those micro goals, and you're always looking to get 1% better, just every single day. And then now you track it, you journal, and you're able to look back 2 years later, and you're able to look back and go, holy cow. Transformation happened because I now can look at this. I can objectify it by looking at what my experience was 2 years ago, and I can realize there is no going back. I can't go back to being that person. right? Because that's how I know that I have transformed.
So when you look back at that, a lot of times we talk on this show, we end up talking about being fathers,
Mm-hmm.
and there's there's a feedback loop there. It can be a negative spiral or a positive spiral. And for me, I've found coaching to be quite a bit like parenting, that you think you've got a sort of one-way job to do, but it's amazing how much you take and grow and learn from a coaching client or from your child as a parent. So how does your relationship with your children, with your son, look different now?
Yeah, I think it's without a doubt the largest and clearest mirror back onto ourselves is our children. I mean, that is the number one theme that I find is, and he, especially my son, my daughter's a little is warming up, but he is unique in the sense that like he'll come up with something. I'm like, where'd you get that? Right? I mean, he's coming up with some things and asking some questions. Like the other day, he comes down the stairs and he's like, Dad, who am I? I mean, like, who am I really? You're like, I mean, I know that I'm Colton, I'm in this body, but he's like, sometimes I don't feel like I'm actually here. Like there's something else going on. I'm like, he's talking about some deep stuff. I'm like, I mean, I don't know if I can fully answer that and have it make sense to a 7-year-old, but I'll try. Like, this is one of the most important questions we can ask ourselves, son, is who am I? And to continue to ask that question over time to pull back the veil, right? And so there's no question that, me personally, my feeling is my job as a father and as a husband is to create an environment of growth, to create a safe place for people to explore who they are, what they want to become, what they're feeling, and not to be safe. They want to try something new. Yes, let's go do it. And to not let my preferences and my conditioning and my biases and my past influence who it is that they are searching to become. I mean, in no way, because I was a college football player or a college football coach, do I want my son to play college football, unless that's what he finds. Like right now he's into dirt bikes. He wants it. He just got it. He's saved enough money to buy himself this little electric dirt bike, and we're on the path of becoming a dirt bike family now. And I'm cool with it. Right. That's great. And so, yeah, it's really, it takes that awareness, to make sure that we are instilling principles in our children, but not influencing in who they're becoming, because they are uniquely their own creation.
And they have so much innate intelligence that
Oh,
they start to figure it out early. That's awesome. That's truly awesome. And they are just the best mirrors, right? They don't hide it. They don't bother to hide it. I don't know if they can hide it. If you start seeing them try to hide it, I mean, that'll make you sad, right?
right. Yeah. I mean, you can definitely sense that they're a little closer to the source than we are.
No doubt about it. Yeah, we get callous over the years.
Yeah.
Well, let's talk a little bit more about, I had a question about how long a journey takes or starts to take, but let's answer this in the context of how you, Ryan, and Heidi and IHP are helping people in your coaching practice, in your community. The book is a starting place.
Yeah.
It talks about a little bit of your philosophy, but let's talk about your practice and how that works with others.
So one of the pieces that was happening is Heidi was coaching and she was doing really well, doing some one-on-one coaching, and she was getting busier and busier with that. And I was doing workshops and teaching yoga and breath. And like, this is, to me, like I uncover, like, this is like my foundation, like breath work and meditation. So I want to teach that to people first and foremost before we dive into anything else. And so we're kind of on these little bit parallel but different paths. And we're recognizing very quickly that it's going to not necessarily put us growing apart, but that we would be so much more impactful together, and we have grown in our relationship to such a level that we want to be in communication with each other every day. Like, that's what we truly have grown to want. And so we're like, what if we did something together? And what if we did it and it's not couples therapy. That is what it's not. But what if we got it across to people that to have the relationship that you want, to have the abundance and the joy and the peace and all these things that you're seeking for and the fulfillment, that we need to just, everything starts internally, right? And to be able to develop a practice, then we can support people in developing their practice that works for them. Like, yoga is a big part of my influence, right? And yoga is so much more than stretchy bendy, right? I mean, we in the Western world think of yoga, we think of, just flexibility, and somehow that's going to make us feel better or sleep better a little bit, whatever. But yoga is a philosophy, it's an approach to life, and it's so much more than just that stretchy bendy stuff. And so I recognize that, and Mark talks about this, that like yoga is not meant to be taught in studios. Like it's not meant to be this big group class where we all come together and do this one practice. Like it's meant to, you have your practice, I have my practice, and it's all about the season of life that you're in. It might be developmental, so it might be to build strength when you're younger. And as we get to a more middle age, it might be more breath work to be able to just navigate the pressures of life. And then as we get older, it becomes more transcendental or therapeutic, because we're now preparing ourselves to transition to a different phase of life, right, or beyond. And so it's yoga becomes this flow of life, and we build a practice that supports us in wherever we are and what our needs are, right? And so in our coaching membership, IHP is the business name, but we have a coaching membership called Be Aligned. And in Be Aligned, we are going to build breath progressions and meditation paths. We have all this ready for people to hop in there and to start to just dive in, right? And then yoga, Kokoro yoga as well. And we will have monthly coaching topics. Like I want people to understand the science that helped us connect the dots. Like, how does perception work? What is this whole idea that you're a mirror to my own need for healing? Like, how does that actually work? And why is it that I need to look inward? So we will teach, everything from unbeatable mind principles of goal setting and mental toughness and the big four and all those types of pieces of the puzzle, but also other influences that we've had with the Q process. And so these will be monthly topics that people can dive into, not dive into, be at their own pace. They can put a throttle down and digest it all, or they're in a season of life, they pull back and they just kind of look from afar. But we have it at a price point that we feel like people are going to say, this is a no-brainer. Like, I'm going to be in here because I believe that these two are going to continue to do the work. We're in the trenches with you, and whatever I don't know, like I have a network of people who can point me in the right direction to go study it and bring it back to the table for my membership, for my community, right? And so we'll have monthly topics and then coaching calls where we can both be on the call and do questions and answers. And then the unique piece of what we're doing here is to say, okay, men, there's going to be a men's call, a women's call. Let's have that safe space to come on and talk about things as men. It's not going to be recorded. It's not going to be any of those types of things, so we'll be able to provide that type of support,
Nice.
and have challenges and have journaling prompts and have all those types of things built in as well. But our goal is for people to do the work on themselves individually, and then that's able to make an impact in their marriage and in their family. I mean, all the way down to my son and I have recorded him talking about breath work and what that means for him and how he starts his day. He just recently said, hey, Dad, I know we're doing this Be Aligned thing. And it's so funny. Be IHP and everything. He's like, I want to really build a morning routine that supports me in showing up the best version of myself. I'm like, you're 7. Right? But I'm like, I'm not going to tell him no, So I'm like, well, what's that look like for you? Because I'm not going to tell you how to start your day.
Right.
He's like, okay, well, I want to do a minute of breathing, and I want to do a minute of yoga, and I want to set an intention. I want to find something I'm grateful for. I'm like, that sounds like a wonderful way for a 7-year-old to start the day.
Oh,
and so
he's ahead of 99% of every age group.
Right. And so that's what he does. So we got a yoga mat set up in his bed, or next to his bed, in a little like kind of a beanbag type chair that he can sit in, that he has for his meditation chair. And he knows enough about breathing to sit there and just be aware of his breath for a moment. And then he knows a few, he goes to my yoga classes with me, so he knows plenty of yoga, and he'll move and breathe. He understands the concept of trying to have his mind and his body in one place, while he's doing the somatic movement. And so I want him to bring that to our membership as well. Like, listen, this is us growing as a family, and we just want to open the doors up and create this environment of growth for everybody. Because we believe that this is the answer to a lot of people's problems is that if we all look inward, every single one of us, and uncover what it is limiting the beliefs about ourselves and grow and push ourselves and challenge ourselves through every type of tool and develop our own practice of how we connect and how we, be able to use the ability of visualization to draw in our future self and everything else, then everything else will fall into a line. Like everything else becomes something we get to just kind of kick back and experience, watching things show up, and we don't have to force life anymore.
He sounds like an incredible young man. I know it comes through the leadership that you and Heidi are offering the kids. What does IHP stand for? I just got to ask.
Integrated Human Performance.
All right. That's what I made up in my mind. So
nice. Did you really?
I did. Well, I mean, we talk about human performance and the practice you described with your son a second ago was very integrated. So
right. There it is.
Yeah, so, perfect. All right. And then, so the Be Aligned membership and opportunity, where can people find that?
Yeah. So it's ihpcoaching.com is the website, and it launches in September, and it's 30 days free. As we launch it, we want people to hop in there, poke around, take what you want, don't leave what you don't want. If it's not for you, no hurt feelings, but we want to just offer everything that's already in there. There's a ton of content that people can hop in and get started and just see if it's something of value for them, so.
Fantastic. And 30 days is super generous. 30 days, as you said, we love quick solutions, silver bullet type of stuff here in America, but lasting transformation doesn't finish in 30 days. But is 30 days a good starting place?
I think any place is a good starting place. I think taking one step, right? I think this is something that we all need to recognize. When I started on my journey is I wanted to see what the whole thing was going to look like, right? I wanted to see myself going, okay, this is what it's going to take. And this is what the obstacles I'm going to have to face. And so this is what I'm going to have to do. Like I wanted to game plan, right? I'm a college football coach. This is what they like to do. This is what we like to do. This is what they'll try to do because they know this is what we like to do. This is for, therefore, this is what we're going to do. This chess game, right? I wanted life to be that same chess game of game planning for a team on Saturday. And it's not going to happen that way. So the idea of saying, how far can you see it in front of your face? If it's only 2 inches, go 2 inches, right? So if this maybe is the next step for you, or maybe not, like just hop in, see, and that's why we set it at a price point. It's $47 a month per household. So it's really, really affordable. And it's something that says, hey, we want to set it at a pace so everybody does not feel some sort of pressure. You're taking some sort of course for $500 and it's 30 days and we got to go all in with this thing, and then you don't do it, and then you feel like a failure because you didn't fully, take advantage. No, listen, this is incremental shifts. This is patience with yourself. This is having grace. And we're making it so you can stay in here and you can ebb and flow with life, and you have a place to go to be supported in your own growth, right? And it's going to be a long haul. I would love to see people in there for minimum of 6 months or a year or beyond, because we're just continuously adding more content and we're growing. So hopefully our community grows with us.
You're growing, they're growing. And so to be clear, it's you and Heidi and maybe the extended family at this point. Yep. You have something unique that you'll have some breakouts for men, some breakouts for women. Most people join as a couple, or if you got a single man, single woman, are they eligible to join 100%.
As well? Individuals as well, yeah. And you don't even have to be parents, right? If you want to, we are telling our story of what resonates with us, and because that's just where we have come from and where we've been, and how we are able to portray what the impact has made upon us, right, of doing this work. But if you're a early 20s who wants to make a change or a shift in their life, or just wants to become a high performer, these tools and these practices, Michael, are the same, whether it's getting somebody out of a cycle of sabotage, right, which is our story for now, because that's what we've overcome. But it's the same tools that I've applied to my residential painting company that now has grown to such a level that I'm just an operator or owner of. I'm no longer operating on a daily basis with, right? So it's the same tools that got me to a place where I could save my marriage, that has allowed for, what do you call it, being a high performer or entrepreneur type stuff, where it allowed for us to have enough success to be able to step back and build the next thing that we're now building and write a book and do all these things, right? I wouldn't have that space if I didn't use these tools to get from A to B. And then, okay, now that I'm here, where am I going, right? And beyond, right? And it's going to continue to be that way. So I believe in the practice of looking inward and letting yourself be the, you're the expert. You're the expert into your own life. So
nice. Well said. And the book should drop the same day we air this, Thursday, August 27th. So where's that available?
Amazon, Amazon.com. Yep. And it's going to be in hard copy and on the Kindle. And, it's just, again, it's an easy read. It's 115 pages. And I didn't try to, make it any longer than that. I'm not trying to blow anybody's socks off with it. It's just telling a good story. It's introducing some principles. It's introducing some practices. And I believe it's something that I kind of wrote this to my previous self, because that person was super resistant, right? And that man wouldn't have picked up a 250-page book, wouldn't have done it, right? And so I try to write this to be as approachable and as easy to read as possible, and with some relatable stories. And I'm just super grateful for the support we've already had up to this point, and that it makes an impact, even just with one person who needs to hear something out of that book that somehow gets them going, right? Gets them to take that next step. Then I've fulfilled my purpose with it. So
yeah, 100%. Congratulations on getting it out there and having the courage to share your journey with your younger self and with that one, or hopefully many people that can benefit from it. And just to put it in perspective, so end of August 2020, you're telling this story through your book finally. When was that moment? How long ago was it that your wife found you curled up on the floor?
That was 2014. 2014. Yeah.
It's a lasting change. It takes time.
Takes
work.
Takes work. Yeah.
Takes practice.
Takes practice. That's right. And I'm sorry to say, but it's work, man. It's work. But I'll tell you, it's worth it.
Got to put in the reps.
It's worth it, man. It's worth it. I would do it 1,000 times again if I had to. And
I love watching the journey and watching what you guys are up to. So I guess just lastly, for anybody who wants to reach out or maybe follow you guys, I know you're dripping some of this content on social media. Where's a good place to find that and to contact you directly if somebody wants to?
Yeah, IHP coaching is Facebook and Instagram. And the email is Ryan Sawyer ihp@gmail.com too. I mean, shoot me an email, and just through our website you can find us as well. Obviously contact us that way. We're just eager to see where it goes and just see who it may resonate with. So
yeah, it seems like you guys are having a ton of fun with it. I love what you're putting out. I know it's been a work in progress for quite a while, so I'm honored to help share a little bit of the story. Great to catch up with you, brother. I appreciate your time. We'll get links to all this stuff out with the episode when it drops here on the 27th.
Thank you so much. Appreciate you having me on, and doing a great job, Michael. Keep it up, buddy.
I appreciate you, Ryan. Thank you.
Okay.
All right. Thank you again to Ryan and Heidi Sawyer of IHP Coaching. Go check out their website, social media, and their new Be Aligned coaching practice. Again, you can find links to all that in the show notes for this episode on our website at manofmastery.com/062. That's it for this episode. Next time we have a guest who is helping men build better businesses by first building better versions of themselves. All right, that's it for this time. Until then, get out there and get after it.